We're going to start almost immediately with our next presentation. We'll just let these two get set up. So don't go anywhere from the sponsor track if you want to hear two members of the Swiss hacking team.
Yes, exactly.
Madness. I feel like I'm with two athletes right now. So just in a couple minutes, I'm being very un-Swiss by letting us run over time, but we're going to make up for it.
It's fine.
Okay, just hold on.
We'll just continue to go over time afterwards.
Just going over time.
He's here. He's here. Yeah, we can start.
Perfect. Okay, everyone, thank you for staying with us here on track one, the sponsor track. Without further ado, let me please introduce Miro Haller and Simon Kinhauser, who are two members of the Swiss national team for cybersecurity hacking. And they're going to talk about the European Security Challenge that just happened, yes. Or what was it, 2021?
Yeah, it just happened 2 weeks ago, the European Cybersecurity Challenge. Thanks a lot for the introduction. Welcome all to our talk for climbing the hacking mountain, we called it, by myself and Simon, who replaces Anthony, who was unfortunately sick at the very last moment. So. But we still do it. So probably you're wondering, what is ECSC, SHC, what are all those abbreviations? So let's start with ECSC. That's the main goal of this whole thing. That's the European Cybersecurity Challenge. And that's an international competition that happens once every year, where there are around 20 countries now that participate, and all of them send 10 young people there to it's really the intention is to promote young cybersecurity talents, get them interested in the industry, in security in general. And so what we do from the Swiss Hacking Challenge, which is like a sub-part of the Swiss Cyberstorm, we organize the national selection to find those people that we send to ECSC. And so in this talk, I will first show you what we did over the last few months, how we selected the team, how we prepared them, and how we fared at ECSC against the international competition. And then Simon will present an actual challenge that our team had to solve during the training to give you an impression on what level of skill is required for those participants. So let's start with the first phase. In March, we started with an online qualifier, which was just, we hosted a CTF. For those who know it, it's a platform where we upload some challenges and people can solve those challenges at home. And there we had 21 different challenges in different categories. So we had web challenges, we had cryptography, we had reverse engineering, we had also Android security. And over 200 people participated and actually managed to solve a challenge. More were registered, but not all managed to do the first step. And of all those participants, we then selected the top 16 ones that had the best scores. And also were Swiss and in the right age range, of course. And then for them, we did a second phase where we grouped them in teams of 4 people. And so why did we group them into teams? Because we think it's not only important to have the best players, but you also need to be able to do teamwork if you want to succeed at a competition like the ECSC. And so we wanted to see how people can interact with each other, how they can solve challenges together. And we gave them 1 month time to prepare for the final. And every person had to develop a CTF challenge himself as well. Because we think it's also, you learn a lot when you write a challenge yourself. Also about unintended solutions. Everyone that has written a challenge, like myself, for example, I wrote one challenge and then soon after it was deployed, someone came with a completely unintended solution that I just didn't think about. So you learn a lot when you implement them yourself. They also had to decide on which difficulties, who does which difficulty in the team, so that they had to do some strategic decisions, like who is probably doing the hardest challenge, who should do which category. So that was fun. And then at the end of this preparation phase, we had this on-site final where all of them would come together and then compete as teams against each other. So here are some impressions from the final. There are 4 of our guys wondering how they should solve this hardware challenge, where the restriction was that they couldn't access the laptop directly, so they couldn't go over the desk, and so they had to find some creative solutions to bridge this gap. And like some of them were using sticks with a USB cable attached on top of it, or others tried to attach a mouse and then remote control the system. And here is another challenge that we set up where you had to write your own Bluetooth client. And this is the teams that we had, the first place and the other places. And then from those teams, we didn't select the winning teams, but we still looked at the individual performance of people and also at which skills we have, so that we have a good combination also of skills, that we have people that can do reverse engineering, that we have people that can do Pwn. And so we selected them on all those evidence that we gathered. We selected 10 people and then trained them for 2 months for the ECSC. And so what is this training? We played CTF and CTF and CTF and more CTF. That was our training. So for the next 2 months, each weekend we would gather or be online for 2 of them. Those 2 we actually met on site, and for the others we just played over Discord. And then I participated in those international competitions, and as you might know, some of them are larger competitions, and all of them are international, worldwide. So the ranks that the team managed to get there is really impressive, because we are competing there against the best CTF teams in the world that also participate there. And as a result, we moved up to the top 3 place in Switzerland in the ranking of all the CTF teams, and to place 86 worldwide. And that's only in 3 months. Like, you have to imagine that this rating goes for the whole year. So it started in January, but we only started playing in July. And so I think that's really impressive performance from the team. But of course, we were not only hacking in front of our computers, we also had fun in our preparation phase. We also even went to the Europa Park. And we also did an escape room to prepare for the escape room challenge parts of the ECSC. Yes, so let's go finally to the ECSC that happened 2 weeks ago, actually. In the end, we were 19 countries. Some of them couldn't participate because of COVID. But the whole thing went for 5 days, and 2 days of that were the CTF, and then the other one was also meeting people, connecting with people, engaging with others, meeting other young people that are interested in cybersecurity. And so here are some impressions from Prague. This was the conference hall where we hold the competition. You see our team is here on the left. And here are some other pictures. The whole competition was really science fiction themed. So they had written actually a book and a storyline for this competition, and everything was designed with spaceships and cool renderings and so on. So they put in really a lot of effort. And for example, here on the bottom left, you see our people that try to solve the escape room challenge, where in the end they had to all gather at one laptop and try to find the right commands. So I'm sure you're wondering how we fared overall in this competition. And so for that, I have to say 6 hours before the end, we were on the 4th place. But then afterwards, we were kind of stuck on the challenges that we were solving. And so in the end, we dropped down to the 11th place. And as you see, like the middle field is very close together. So if we would have managed to solve one additional challenge, we would have went up to the 7th place. And that just shows how hard the competition is and how close together all those countries are. And so that you get another impression on how hard some of the challenges can be, Simon will now present to you one of the challenges.
So let's hack. Yeah, as we said in the beginning, Anthony Schneiter was supposed to give this talk, but he fell ill. That's why I jump in, so this will be a little rocky, maybe, hopefully not too much. So let's start with the challenge. It's a binary exploitation challenge, so that means we are given a executable, a binary, and there is some kind of vulnerability in it. We don't know which one. We don't have the source code. We don't have anything. All we have is the binary, and obviously we can run it. So at first we look at it from like a purely static point of view. We check what kind of binary it is. It's an ELF binary. We check what it's linked to, so which libc version and stuff that it is targeting, and all those basic stats we need to know. And then of course we run it and we see what it actually does. So this particular binary was kind of a meta challenge because it referenced CTFs themselves. So we were able to virtually create challenges and patch them, deploy them, take them down, and exit the binary. So this was kind of a simulation. This is quite typical, and you can imagine this to be any kind of application with any kind of user interface. It just happens to be console applications in CTFs most of the time, but this could be a graphical application as well. So what we do first, we first do a checksec, which tells us some of the properties of the binaries, including, do you see my mouse? No, you don't. Including that it is NX enabled. This means we cannot execute code where we can write it. So there's no executable stack, no executable heap, and all the code that needs to be run needs to be written ahead of time, so during compilation basically. Also important to note is the PIE enabled flag, which tells us that all the addresses in the binary, so the addresses of the functions and the stack and the heap, they're all randomized, so we don't know them in advance. This is a detail that will come in later. We already know it's a binary exploitation challenge, and when we disassemble it, we also know what kind of challenge it is. For this, we need specific tools. There's tons of tools, and different CTF players prefer different tools, but we will use GHIRA most of the time. Some prefer Radare or IDA Pro, which is proprietary, and why I don't use it. And also GDB for dynamic analysis. GDB in this case is particularly interesting because it has a fairly nice heap statistics that we see here in the middle. It tells us what kind of bins exist and what chunks are in those bins. We'll come to that later. A little recap about the heap itself. The heap is the data structure where you can store data independent of the stack. I hope most of you know what it is. You can allocate memory with the function mallocate, and you need to free it yourself, so it's not managed to you. There's no garbage collector or anything. You need to, whatever you allocate, you need to free. And if you don't apply these functions in the right order or the right number of times, there's loads of vulnerabilities in the heap. By the way, I think I neglected to mention, we figured out that it is a heap exploitation challenge due to the fact that we can manipulate the heap and deploy and destroy challenges which are on the heap. Yeah, so next thing that's important to know is that there's a main arena on the heap which stores some metadata that is interesting to us because it includes some information that we can use to later really exploit this binary. Also, the bins, as promised, those are kind of containers for chunks, which is a region in the heap that has been used but is not in use right now anymore. So they are used, let's say you allocate a chunk, and then you free a chunk, and then you reallocate it. the bins are there to fasten up this process so that you can really quickly know that there is a region or that there is a chunk that has the right size for the amount of data that you need to allocate. This is important because we had to do something crazy with it to get arbitrary read and write, as we will see. There's multiple ways how you can solve these kinds of challenges, heap exploitation challenges. There's house techniques, which there are plenty of challenges that use it. But in this case, this is a rather standard heap exploitation challenge, and this is what we'll focus on. Genau. So this is just a little bit more insight into the application, how it works. We have those in the menu. You saw like the actions we can take. This is the first action. It's called Make Challenge. It allows us to create a new challenge, and it will allocate the memory for it on the heap. It will be 60 bytes long, which gives us enough room for a category. What else? A name, a description, and how many points it will get if you solve it, theoretically anyway. What is interesting here is that we can see that the description, the description is a separate, is on a separate address at the heap. So this is a pointer within the heap memory, and if we can control the heap memory itself, we control the pointer and have potentially arbitrary read and write. This is exactly what will happen. There are the challenges array, so we have challenges available. This is not really important. The second part is patching a challenge. After we created the challenge, we can patch a challenge. There's some jokes in there which aren't that important either. What is important though is we can change the description of the challenge. So remember, if we control the pointer to the description, we can now write to this address and have arbitrary write. Similarly, there is the deploy challenge function, which lets us print the description, which gives us arbitrary read. Let's see what's this. Oh yeah, that's a side note, actually quite important. And anyway, there's a variable that gets counted down every time you do stuff. Here it's -5. This variable gets decreased, and if it's too low, the program just exits. It's not really important, but it makes it a little bit more difficult. It limits the amount of actions you can take. This one we talked about. Take down a challenge. Here we got free. As we said, you have to free everything you allocate on the heap has to be freed by hand. What this allows us to do though is it potentially allows us to free chunks that have already been freed. So double free exploits could happen here. And then there's the last money point that just exits. So let's recap. What do we have? What do we have to do? We have to leak the addresses of libc. So this gives us a clue where we are, where interesting code snippets, also called gadgets, are in the memory. Since DSLR is enabled, we have actually no clue where we have to jump, even if we could jump. Then next we have to write an interesting address, a gadget, into a location that is actually results in code execution. And there are a couple of options. The one that we decided on is the exit hook, which is essentially just an address somewhere in memory where you can register a function that gets executed just before the application exits. So this is what we did. We wrote an address to the exit hook. Now all we have to do is jump to there. And since it's the exit hook, all we have to do is exit the application. And luckily for us, there is like loads of exits. Also, one more thing that I should mention, apparently. We cannot just write a shell somewhere on the heap or on the stack or anything because NX is enabled, which means we can either write or execute any given region of memory. So we do need a gadget to execute code. So then here's the script. Like the first thing that we usually do if we encounter such challenges, you've seen all the user interface and stuff, which makes it kind of complicated. But all there really is a way to allocate memory and a way to free memory. So we abstract this into a function in Python, so we can easily just create the exploit and don't have to worry about all those user input things. Also, this is not important. So now to the exploit itself. There's one more exploit that I have neglected to mention. There's the off by 1 error in the name field of the challenge, which allows us to write 1 byte more than the buffer is actually the size of the buffer. And in a heap environment, in a stack environment, that is kind of not worth that much because probably there's some buffer or whatever, like nothing very interesting, just 1 byte after the array. But on the heap, that's quite interesting because under the right conditions, we can manipulate some of the metadata that's on the heap. Because the heap is not like the buffer, the stack where things just are directly above each other. On the heap, you have metadata in between the chunks. And those metadata contain important information about, well, stuff. For example, if the previous region of memory is used or free and how big it is. This will be used if you free the region that the metadata belongs to decide what control flow will be done. So what we do is we overflow the buffer by 1 and manipulate the metadata so that when we free, here you see we have the previous size and the previous in use manipulated. That's a view of the heap. Don't worry about it. If we do this and we manipulate this in just the right way, we can corrupt the heap layout. So crazy shit starts to happen right here. For example, like the layout is different, obviously. Pointers spawn on the heap. This gives us the possibility to leak the libc address, which we need to do. And we have also use of the free vulnerability, since we pretended that the region is free behind us, but it isn't actually free, it's in use, and we can now free it and reallocate it with a new structure and then abuse the pointer that I was talking already to get those arbitrary reads and writes. Yeah, this is exactly what we do here. We allocate a new challenge that is placed at the same location as the challenge that we freed before is, giving us write access to the pointer of the challenge that is actually there, that has been there all the time, giving us arbitrary reads and writes. What we first do is we leak libc, and then we leak some more. And the most important thing about that we leak here are those two. The DLRTLD unlock recursive is the exit hook, and the one gadget is a chunk of code that gives us a shell like immediately. It's bizarre that those exist, but they do. And all we have to do now is take down the challenge for some reason, which will decrease the counter to a negative value, and we'll call the exit hook. This gives us shell execution, and all we got to do now, we're not where I thought we were, but anyway, we're running out of time. At some point later, we get shell access, and we can just cat the flag. This flag will be submitted to the CTF organizers, whatever, and we get points for it. So this is the level of complexity we're dealing with in the Swiss Hacking Challenge team. And if anyone's impressed, we are always looking for partners. Sponsors are welcome. These are our sponsors right now, by the way. Thank you for listening.
Big round of applause for Miro and Simon. Not an easy thing to do to take the presentation right before our closing keynote. So I'm afraid that we're not going to have time for any questions, even though I have many right now. But will we be able to catch you at the after party?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Just talk to us anywhere.
We're the guys with the shirts.
Yes.
Perfect.
With the shirts, or team members or coaches.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around here at the sponsor track. I'm now going